My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era, and today I have Dhaksayan Shanmuganayagam. I got it. And he is the CIO at the TTC, or the Toronto Transit Commission, where he's worked at for, I think, just over 15 years now. So, Dhaksayan, welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for having me. I know we've been trying hard to arrange this, and happy to finally be able to make it mutually.
Yeah, and Dhaksayan is just like myself, a relatively new father. So, when people make time and when they are parents, I definitely appreciate it more given how scarce time is when you are a parent. But for me, I like that, for me, one of the things that got me to want to interview you or talk to you or have a conversation was, often with, I guess government-run organizations or public organizations like the TTC, you don't often think of them being innovative or like requiring someone like a CIO. So when I saw that you were working there, I was, very curious about, your experience working at a, government-run organization, or publicly funded organization. So I like to start at the beginning, especially now that we're parents. So how do you think that your childhood or like your formative teenage years played a part in you developing, a strong interest in technology?
Well, yeah, you might think it's funny, but outside of work, I really don't have a strong interest in technology. I'm very old school and a late adopter of technology. You should see my cell phone. And like while I was in school, like most of the kids were taking out their fancy laptops to take notes. I went to class with like a few sheets of lined paper, a calculator, and a pen all in my pocket. My interests were really in politics, governance, and history. Like that's my interest right now as well, from a hobby point of view. And growing up as a child, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So when I was 8 years old, my brother always used to watch Law and Order. And back in the days, I'm not sure if you remember, it used to be playing every day on A&E, the channel. And that would be our family time together. My dad, my brother, and I watching Law and Order every weekday at 7 p.m. And out of that was born my love for law, and especially constitutional law. And I spent studying American Constitution and would recite the various amendments when I was a little kid. But however, when I was growing up, contrary to now, I was very quiet and timid. And one day, my dad came to me and said, "Dakshan, you don't like to talk, you don't like to read books. Do you really believe law is something that would fit you?" And he said, "You're good at math. Why don't you go into computer science?" And to be honest, like it was a little bit disappointing to me because I had my heart set on law, and in my dreams, I was going to be a lawyer. But I said, "You know what? I'm going to hear my dad out." So like I think the next day I went to him and we sat on our Windows 3.1 PC back in the mid 90s, and he taught me the fundamentals of QBasics, which is a DOS-based programming language for anyone who doesn't know. And he gave me this big brown old book, and it's like a huge book of commands and functions because this is the time before Google where you're able to Google all these things. And from that day on, like I started teaching myself how to program. I used it to solve everyday problems using coding. It started as a hobby and turned into a passion. And I began developing DOS-based computer games as a hobby, sold it to my elementary school friends on those 3.5 floppy disks. Sometimes you accidentally spread viruses as well because cybersecurity wasn't a thing back then. And then transitioning into high school, I continued that passion, but I kind of kept it to myself because at that age, it wasn't cool to be seen as a programming nerd, right? So I kept that to myself. But however, competed in multiple competitions, finished twice in the top 1 percentile of all Canada in the Waterloo computing competition. And then in 2004, entered UFD and as a natural fit, majored in computer science. Did 3 co-op terms with the TTC, joined as a full-time, and here we are. And I like to joke that when people ask me about my story, that Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook and I had very similar beginnings and timelines. Mark's dad taught him QBasics. He developed, just like my dad, he developed games and sold it to his friends like I did. However, in university, he developed Facebook and became a billionaire, and I didn't. That's the only difference. So that's kind of my story.
That's awesome. I guess a couple of things. Number one, love Law and Order. I watched Law and Order SVU. Number two, I guess it's not too late for you if you ever want to kind of make that pivot to becoming a lawyer as well. And number three, I guess, with you did your 3 internships at TTC. You've been there for a long time. I'm very curious, like, what made you decide to, I guess, keep going back and now, like, most people they do internships and then they kind of go full time somewhere else. It's kind of just to collect multiple experiences, but you kind of really seem to have stuck with the TTC. So what's their secret sauce for kind of keeping you?
Well, when I entered my first year at U of T, and when you start thinking about co-op work terms, I don't think I ever had TTC in my mind as a target for my placement. It's always those big tech firms, right? Like I was targeting Microsoft, IBM, Amazon, Google. Those were kind of the big names back then. However, like every first year, I was slacking a bit. I missed the window to apply for co-op jobs. And during the first round, where UFD had the job postings, I missed it, and I had to wait for the second round to apply. So when the second round opened up, I was searching for positions, saw a posting for the TTC, and lucky for me, it happened to be that the TTC was looking for a co-op student. Initially, they were searching for in Waterloo, wasn't able to find, so they said, "Hey, let's give UFD a try." So I applied for the job. The posting said TTC Harvey Shop. Hey, what did I know? I thought it was the actual burger joint, Harvey Shop, and I was wondering why does a restaurant need a programmer? But later realized that was actually the TTC name for their maintenance facility, the large maintenance facility. So they interviewed me, they hired me to work on implementing systems to support their facilities operations. And I'll tell you, within the first week, I fell in love with the people there, the department I was working for, and the organization as a whole. And a lot of the reasons was because I wasn't looked at as a student. I was looked at as a member of the team. My work and opinions were valued. Like management would come to me and say, "Hey, like don't be shy, open up. We look to you for your expertise." And so I really felt that they were investing in me, and I was motivated to prove myself. My work was appreciated. I was recognized throughout various levels of management. And I loved it so much that looking back, it's embarrassing now, but I wrote an email to HR saying, I don't want to go back to school. Is there any chance I can extend my work term? And I think everyone thought the email was cute because I was only 18 years old back then. But however, I went back to school the next term, and the following summer, the TTC reached out saying that, "Hey, you want to join back in the next summer for additional terms?" No hesitations, immediately said yes, and that's all she wrote.
This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me.
So I imagine like in the course of 15 years, you've got a ton of promotions or like escalations in job titles. For people listening that kind of work at big organizations and kind of want to move up, I obviously it takes time, but how would you like, did you have a particular strategy or like way of doing things to kind of help, provide yourself with better opportunities to move on up? Or like, the big word is networking. I don't like that word, but um, you know, was networking part of kind of your arsenal of tools that you use to kind of get to where you are today? Or like what else did you kind of do to slowly move up, I guess, in terms of hierarchy at the TTC?
That's a good question. And last month, I actually was at a panel at UFT Scarborough at their Career Cadet Conference, and new grads were asking me the same question. Like I had students come to me after I was speaking and say, "Hey, how did you do it so quick? What was it? Was it networking? What's your secret?" And my perspective is, you need to think of yourself as a product, and what makes a successful product? Like it's quality, it's reputation, it's name recognition, right? And whether it's you as a product or when you're buying something from the store, it's the same formula. So when it comes to quality, it's you need to deliver on the expectations on time. And if I remember when I first joined, like you had a list of work, like I was focused on delivering that on time and meeting the expectations. The second part is reputation. So you want to make sure, what do people really think of you, and you want to be someone that you can be counted on and someone that goes above and beyond. And I remember when I first joined, I sacrificed a lot. I remember working 24/7 to prove myself. Sometimes you sacrifice your friendships and not going out because I was really invested in proving myself and building that reputation. I remember, like I had at one point, one of my parents was not feeling well. We had to take them to the hospital, but I had something that I needed to deliver. I remember it was the middle of the night. Went to the hospital. I drove outside of the office. I slept in the car, no showering because it had to be delivered the next day. Went into the office and delivered it, right? So sometimes you do need to make those sacrifices. And the other piece is taking on challenges because any opportunity that you take on is an opportunity to be seen. And that's from a reputation point of view. And then the third for me is name recognition. And when it comes to name recognition, it is marketing, it's networking, it's putting yourself out there, and it's building those relationships. Volunteering, it's not always about money. Sometimes it's volunteering and helping out, attending social events and building those networks. And why? Because if no one sees you, who's going to give you a chance, right? And it's also important to do this early on in your career. I'm not sure if you watch Suits. There's this one episode that Harvey Specter tells Mike, when I got here, I dominated. They thought I worked 100 hours a day. No matter what time I come in, no one questions my ability to get the job done now. And he ends off by saying, get it through your head, first impressions last, right? And it's very similar to kind of my journey at the TTC as well. It's really important that anyone starting off any organization, your first impression that you put out there is really important.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, you're currently the CIO at TTC. Um, I see those positions, like different positions like CTO, CIO, etc. I'm curious, like, what do you do on a day-to-day basis, or does it look different? Like, what is the general responsibility of like a CIO, like a Chief Innovation Officer?
So the CIO, which is the Chief Information Officer, from a roles and responsibility point of view, you're responsible for the technology strategy in the organization. So understanding what the organization wants to do from a business objective, and putting out the technology that and laying out the technology strategy to support it and enable it. That's one piece of it. The other piece is the implementation of that strategy by delivering on technology initiatives to support business transformation or business innovation. And then management and support of business systems and technical services and the underlying infrastructure to support all of that. And last but not least, cybersecurity, and that's a big topic these days, and ensuring that various risks are mitigated and the organization is protected. So from a day-to-day, what it looks like, you're spending time communicating with your internal stakeholders, understanding their needs, their priorities, adjusting your technology strategy to support that. You're reviewing various project statuses, providing oversight and guidance, meeting with your direct reports, and providing support to them to ensure that their objectives are met. And a big part of it is people, right? You're managing a lot of people, whether it's directly or indirectly. There's a component of looking at employee engagement, ensuring that there is a succession plan or recruitment plan, addressing people issues. And then there's continuous learning, because it's an evolving field and you need to keep yourself to date as well.
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you.
I imagine the CIO role, based on everything you're describing, like you said, it's a lot of people management. I'm not good at that. That's like, for me, one of the things is, if I think I can do it better, I just, I won't take the time to kind of, train people or whatever it is. It's just a weakness of mine. So imagine you're very good at that. Was that something you've been always good at, or did you like learn something, or like take a course or read a book or something to kind of, I guess, strengthen that part of like who you are?
Oh, I think it goes back to my time in high school. So I was mentioning to you that programming was my hobby, and it started to get known while I was doing these competitions and winning the competitions through for the teachers as well. That I really excelled in it. So in high school, there was a competition. It was a group competition where each high schools will compete against each other, putting a team of programmers to do various challenges. So they asked me to lead that team. And I was a little bit arrogant because I knew that I was a good programmer. I said, you know what, this is going to be easy. I'm going to take this team, we're going to lead it, and we're going to win the competition. Going to the competition, we came last. And it was really an eye-opener for me, and something that I learned that day, and it sits to me till today. It's, no matter how good you are, leadership doesn't matter how good you are. Leadership is about how good you make everyone else around you. And I think that was one of my key learning lessons that have stuck with me throughout my career. and something that I've applied in the various leadership roles that I've had as well in my whole career.
So how do you like what resources other than kind of that lesson? Obviously, it seems like it's something that's kind of stuck with you, but is there something you would recommend to people listening in terms of maybe like a book, podcast, or something? Any kind of resource. If not, no worries, but I was just curious, even for
Uh,
myself.
in the top of my head, how I learned is there's a lot of TED Talks that I've watched just to because and from a leadership point of view, communication is key as well. So being able to understand how you communicate to people is key. So I would suggest TED Talks, training and courses to understand yourself as well as a leader and what is required. Because there is no one fit solution from a leader point of view. You do have to look at it from a case to case. And it's a lot of experience, building that experience and having a mentor guide you on how to be a leader as well.
Got it. And one of the things we had talked about maybe before like starting recording was, like you don't think of, the TTC as like an innovative place, but like you know, for me, I think about any kind of publicly funded organization like the TTC, you're competing against the Facebooks, the Googles, these big tech companies or startups. How do you, as a publicly funded organization, drive innovation or like, what are some of the challenges you face as you're trying to drive innovation? Because for me, I think of number one is like talent, like recruiting talent, but maybe that's not the case. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I guess you're asking like, how do we overcome challenges for like a public sector organization. So I have not worked with a for-profit company, so I don't know what the differences directly would be, but I assume that challenges would be in a public sector. There's usually layers of approval because there's the need for transparency and accountability since it's public dollars. But otherwise, I see the approach the same, whether it's public or private. It's about building that business case and ensuring that there's strategic alignment to what the organization wants to do, identifying what the total cost of ownership is, what the benefits are, what the payback is, what's the risk, and really selling that business case as to why the funding is required for that innovation why that funding is required to invest in that innovation and what that payback is to the organization.
Got it. And I guess it's kind of also somewhat related to this, but going back to the tech or the talent acquisition part, for me, I'm always thinking about like now as a dad, what is the future of education? Is there going to be still kids going to university? And is that where companies will look to hire, or is there going to be, will education look different? But I'm curious on your thoughts because you obviously, did computer science and that really helped you with kind of getting to where you are today. But do you think education in the future looks different or like and I guess looking at your role, if the future of education changes, how does that change your approach to hiring as well? And working in a publicly funded organization, does that change it at all?
I'm not sure what the future of education will be, especially with the new emerging technologies like ChatGPT and all these AI tools. But I assume that there's always going to be the universities for students to go and learn and build their academics. But there's this one Instagram post that I was reading the other day, and it says, "Education teaches you how to play, experience teaches you when to strike." Right. So it's important, but I wouldn't say it's the end all. And my approach to recruiting talent and building talent, it's looking at your team like a sports team. And I think that's one mistake that a lot of people make. It's what do you need to invest to make sure that you have a long successful team. So if you look at if you follow basketball, like the San Antonio Spurs, why are they always very successful? They have a good system where they always have their all-stars, they have their role players, they have their veterans. But what do they always do? They always invest in rookies. Like they go and search, they bring in the rookies, they develop the rookies, and those rookies are set up for success to be the all-stars in the future. So I think whether it's public sector or private sector, I think that's the strategy that organizations need to do. They need to, especially if it's very hard to recruit top talent, whether it's because of compensation or whatnot. They need to build a rookie farm system similar to sports teams, being able to identify talent and looking for maybe raw talent, that individuals that have potential and have particular soft skills, where then you can build them into your system and build that succession where they do have the opportunity to become those ulcers that you're looking for.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I'm a big Spurs fan, so I definitely get it. In terms of I guess your life at the TTC, I know it's been 15 years, but is there a project you worked on in the last, 5 years maybe, or I guess whenever, like or something you worked on that you're very proud of, and you can share whatever details you want to about the project, but I'm curious about that.
So over the last 10 years, have worked on many projects, and I'd say I'm proud of each one of them because no matter how small or large, there's always something you learn from it and you gain some sort of new experience. But you asked for one, I'm gonna call it two that comes to mind. The first was in 2021, and it's public knowledge. The TTC was hit with cybersecurity incident, and where I was responsible for leading the organizational response to recover. So myself and the team, we worked 24/7 over several weeks to successfully achieve that goal. And I remember having to live apart from my family. Like my son was only 1 year old at that time, because I ended up staying close to the office. And I think that's an experience that changed me, because while it was a challenge, it was an experience that's going to stay with me forever. And the second one was an ERP implementation where I was in charge of a team responsible for system integration. This was, I think, in 2018. And why this one stands out for me, because it was my first foray in management. So it's where I learned to manage a team. I built my confidence as a corporate leader. So those are the two that really have impacted me and influenced me that I would say that I'm really proud of as well.
Money can be hard to come by, but here is a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free?
With your friends or like I guess social circle, family, etc. What's a common misconception that people have about the work you do, or just kind of working in a publicly funded organization?
It's every party I go to, I tell them I work for the TTC, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, what bus route you drive for?" So I think that's the big misconception that everyone thinks that you work for TTC, that you are like one of the frontline operating employees that are operating on the transit modes, and I don't blame them. It is a transit service delivery, and it is that core business. I can fully understand why one would have that misconception, but it's a large organization with 16,000 plus employees, and there are various strategic and supporting functions that enable the core. So I would say that's been the biggest misconception.
It seems like you're like a very forward-thinking guy as well. You kind of think about the future. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 years, or like what do you see yourself doing?
Next 3 years. So I believe that learning never stops, and to stay knowledgeable and competitive in any discipline, you need to continually invest in yourself. So I do see myself continually upskill, whether that's self-studying on an emerging topic or targeting to complete additional formal education. I always had MBA as an objective, so hopefully I'll make some strides in pursuing that. Maybe not in the next 3, but definitely the next 5 years. Secondly, my main focus is spending more time with my young family, nurturing and growing that part of my life. Family is very important to me, and in my early years, my family system played an important role of who I am today. For example, my mom was a stay-at-home mom who gave like unconditional support basically my entire life. My dad was an academic who supported my education, and both of them together always supported me and motivated me in those ways, right? So it's together they shaped the person who I am today, and together with my wife, I want to be there for my son and for my family, because I got married, became a CIO, and I had a son all in a span of a few years. So it feels a little bit rushed. So I just want to make sure that I experienced all of it and enjoy every aspect of my life to the fullest. And lastly, I think about 4 years ago, I began volunteering and facilitating leadership training for young talent students. And I must say it was one of the most rewarding experiences in my life. Unfortunately, I had to pause it as life got busy, as you can understand as a father yourself. But definitely do see myself getting back out there and giving back to the community that has supported me as well.
I love the fact that you kind of mentioned all those three things, because I think those are the like similar priorities for myself as well. You kind of mentioned it earlier, and I'm curious, as you're a CIO, and every organization is probably thinking about it in some way, but like, what are your thoughts on ChatGPT and just like AI in general? You personally, like, what are your thoughts on it?
Um, I was asked this question as well in a conference that I was at, and they asked what's my thought of ChatGPT in terms of ethics. I think it's a tool, and it's a tool to be used, but not to be relied on, right? Because I remember reading this. I guess it was a meme and said when when calculators came out, people thought that everyone's going to forget how to do simple math, right? But it's a tool that is here to stay. So I think ChatGPT is similar to a calculator. It's a tool that's here to stay, and I think it's just people need to learn how to use it in its right way and in its right means to ensure that it's utilized in an ethical means.
Yeah, I guess it's like a car. Like a car is generally thought of as a positive thing, gets you from point A to point B pretty fast, but it can
Correct.
also be used for bad as well. So I get that.
Correct.
If you had a chance to go back in a time machine and visit, your 16-year-old self, what would you tell him?
My immature 16-year-old self, what I would tell him. If I was to go back, I'll say three things. First is it's okay to take risks in life because I was raised in a very risk-averse family, and that influences the decisions you make as well because it's kind of your experience, right? And usually, if that's the case, you make the decision that is either no risk or low risk. And as you know, in life, higher the risk, higher the reward, right? And I would have told myself, get out of your comfort zone and take a chance and don't be afraid to fail. So because it took me a while to start taking risks, and I think if I knew that it's okay to take risks, I would have taken it in an earlier stage of my life. Second, it's the talent mindset, and I'm sure your parents probably did the same. It's what most talent parents do. It's study, 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 right? And while studies are important, soft skills is as much important, and it's important to develop, especially communication, and it's something important to fine tune at an early age. And it's a skill that I end up um, developing it later in my life and my career, but it's something it's really important to start very early. And the third thing I would say is, and I kind of alluded to it earlier as well, is while you work hard, play harder because life comes at you very fast. It feels like I was 16 yesterday, but that was a long time ago. And what I'm trying to say is just enjoy your life because it does really fly.
As you were speaking, I thought about like, what your dad did for you in terms of teaching you programming. And now that you have a young son or like young child as well, what are some things that you want to teach him to prepare himself for kind of the future that he's going to encounter in, 5, 10, 15 years?
I think the first thing would be is be yourself because that's really important because you need to define your identity and who you are. The second is I would, depending on what his interests are, I would support him in what he wants to do and help him build those skills and be that coach and mentor. I sometimes fall in that trap of being that coach dad as well. Like for example, my son goes to soccer, and I'm one of those parents that can't stop screaming and screaming instructions and more louder than the coach. But it's about not pressuring and being there behind the scenes to support wherever they want to go and just providing that guidance and mentorship so that they reach their goals as well.
And I guess looking forward in terms of your personal legacy, in a few sentences, like how would you want to be remembered by your family and friends?
So when I retire, sitting on a beach somewhere sipping on my scotch, I think I would feel satisfied in my career, or as you said, legacy. If I can look back and truly say that I've touched as many lives as possible, and that these individuals feel that I have been instrumental in their life or career, and I really like to be remembered as a cherished mentor and a guide. Because as I look back in my life and career, I didn't get to where I am today myself. And throughout the journey, I was fortunate to have had people invest in me, support in my growth, provide me mentorship and guidance, whether it was my family, friends, the bosses that I had, or colleagues. So I want to pay that forward by nurturing and empowering others. And I hope to be remembered as someone who inspired and encouraged others to reach their full potential.
Well, it's fortunate, I guess, that you work on a product or service that touches millions of people daily. So I guess you'll probably hit that mark on your personal legacy. So how do you feel, or how connected do you feel to your Tamil identity?
That's a good question. When I was appointed as the permanent CIO, the TTC posted my picture, my name, and the announcement on TV screens throughout office locations, divisions, and garages. And several Tamil frontline employees took pictures of that announcement and shared it with their personal WhatsApp group. And the picture was forwarded from one WhatsApp group to another WhatsApp group, to eventually to a group that my sister-in-law was in and another group that my father-in-law was in. And they both came to me and showed me the picture, and it was captioned Tamilin, proud moment. And to be honest, I was taken back that my community was proud of me. And I remember my first speech I gave to the department when I became CIO was, and I wanted to make it known that what my identity was, and I shared with everyone. Everyone, my name is Dakshan. I was born and raised in Singapore. I'm Tamil with my roots from the island of Sri Lanka, and I really wanted to make that clear because I'm proud to be Tamil, and I gained my appreciation of my Tamil identity during my high school years, because that's when I gained a lot of friends that were Tamil as well, and it further strengthened during my time at UFD with my involvement at the Tamil Students Association, serving as its president during the final year. And I think I met you at one of the meetings, because I think you were associated to the UFD St. George Town associations as well.
Wow, it's like crazy. I think there's like 2 degrees of separation in the Tamil community in Toronto.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a good segue into the final segment of the podcast. It's a speed round I like to call Creator Confessions. I'm basically going to say a bunch of statements, and you're going to tell me the first thing that pops to mind. Ready?
Yep.
Favorite Tamil food?
Kotoroti.
Something that scares you?
Heights.
What's an insecurity that you have?
My weight.
Favorite TV show you're watching?
Law and Order.
A place you're itching to travel to?
Hawaii.
A fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to?
Okay, I'll give a shout out to my two brother-in-laws, Bindu and Praveen.
What is something that you'd like to do for fun outside of work?
Watch basketball.
Favorite movie of all time? It can be Tamil, English, or both.
Speed from 1996 with Keanu Reeves.
Really? That's interesting. Okay. What is a decision that you've been putting off for a while?
Going back to school to do my MBA.
Who would you like to have on your invisible personal council?
Johnny Crockman.
What is a purchase you've made in the last couple of years that you splurged on, but you have no regret about it?
My Bose headphones.
Pet peeve.
Disorder.
A person or celebrity that you look up to.
Barack Obama.
If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have.
Not being there for my family.
You talked about retiring earlier. So what's an age that you want to retire by?
52.
That's very specific. Why 52?
At the TTC, you can retire after 30 years of service.
Oh, got it. Okay. Celebrity whose life that you would want to experience for just one day.
Cool. LeBron James.
Yep, that's a good one. What's a book that you read or a podcast you've listened to that's had an impact on you?
That's a hard one, because I've never read a book, and the only podcast I've listened to is yours.
What's a belief, behavior, or habit that has improved your life?
The belief that I never look back, and no matter what decision you make, you always look forward and see how you move on.
And finally, what's a piece of advice that you would give to your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there?
Never give up on your dreams. Don't be afraid to fail. And yeah.
Great advice. Dakshan, thank you for jumping on the podcast. This has been great. If somebody's listening to this and they're inspired, they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm always available to provide any support I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And for those of you listening, appreciate you guys as always. On to the next episode.
Thank you, Ara.